Let's talk about assholes. Spoiler alert, all money isn't good money and the hidden benefit of firing your clients. So I was having a conversation the other day with someone who is decidedly not an asshole. We had a client from Australia come in and fly in and visit us, and we got to talking about clients and stories and kind of talking shop. And as it will a lot of times happen, you start talking about some of those fun horror stories because those are, the most fun stories to tell. And of course, it inevitably sort of moved into talking about asshole clients. The clients we love to hate, the clients that we wish we could just fire and say goodbye to. And spoiler alert, you totally can. And it turns out firing them can be a great decision. There are a lot of hidden benefits to it. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. But before that, let's talk some ground rules. So first and foremost, I wholeheartedly want to believe, I believe most people are decent humans. Most of us are doing our best, right? Someone who is acting like an asshole in one setting does not necessarily mean that they're an asshole in every aspect of their life. You might have just caught somebody on a bad day, whatever it may be. However, there are some cases where the lines get crossed and you run into someone who's acting like an asshole and not stopping. And sometimes the only way to handle an asshole is to fuck it. Or in this case, I guess maybe we should just say, all right, fuck it, and fire the client and remove the relationship from our life. Now, that's probably good advice, I think, in general, right? I had a mentor that had a part in this talk that was literally labeled asshole elimination system about different assholes in your life. Are we having fun with the word asshole yet? And so yes, I wholeheartedly believe that eliminating most assholes from your life is probably a decent thing. But the fact is, sometimes we let these assholes give us money. Now, before we make the decision on how to handle said asshole that is giving you money, we need to put some qualifiers together. First and foremost, if you are in the wrong, if you messed up and you don't own it, you don't make it right, you don't do what you can to take care of said client, to be very clear, you're the one being the asshole here. This does not give you a free pass to say that you are infallible. That's just immature, wrong, it's entitled. Stop listening. I don't want you in our universe, right? If we do that, if we mess up and then we don't own it, I would argue we're being the asshole, not the client. And so if that situation happens, here's some quick notes on how to handle it. Now, I think my number one kind of favorite starting point on how to handle the, oh my gosh, we messed up situation and the client's grumpy about it is, and I believe this is I do want to give credit where credit's due. I think this is a Hormozy concept where he popularized the idea of the angry boat. And I love, I can't tell you how much I love the concept of the angry boat. And to me, the idea of the angry boat is one of the most useful concepts that I've seen in the service industry. And the idea is essentially that there's only room for one person in the angry boat. And the concept there is that the angriest person is the one that gets the seat in the angry boat. So if you have a client that comes to you and it's, you've messed up, right? I had this happen with a client ages ago where they messaged me and our idiotic trainer thought it was a good idea to, number one, be late, and number two, leave his bike that smelled of gasoline, literally left the gym smelling like gasoline, inside the gym during the session. And so the client was rightfully so, completely pissed off, right? But I don't know if I'd heard the angry boat concept this time. This was years ago, but I still used the concept. And the idea was I tried to get more pissed off than the client did. So if he's, oh my gosh, I don't understand how that happened. This is unacceptable. What's going on here, GR? Dude, you are absolutely right. I can't believe this. This is completely unacceptable. I'm going to have a talk to that. We're probably going to end up firing him, we're going to get this handled right away. Hold on, right? There's only room for one person in the angry boat. And so the client will oftentimes sort of overcorrect. Hey, no, look, it's not that big of a deal. You guys have been incredible. He's been great for the most part. I just, you caught me on a bad day. I was frustrated that we were late. And it's look, well, I appreciate you being so cool about this. It is going to be a very serious conversation with this coach, and I should have fired him, but not necessarily for that. Long story. One day we might get into it, but long story short, jumping into the angry boat made the client less angry. We showed some ownership, and a lot of times what's nice, if you can own things when you've messed up, you're going to take somebody from an asshole to an advocate, which is a very powerful thing to do. And frankly, I think it's something that as business owners that we care about the business, right? Our businesses are our babies in a lot of cases. A lot of times we take things personal. Man, if we can develop the skill of taking the feedback with some maturity, owning it, and then turning those people into advocates, it is one of the best mindsets that we can take in order to help us grow our business, kind of take things to the next level. Because what can happen when that person gives you feedback and you make things right, what have you, is you take that feedback and you now make the experience better for everybody else, which bleeds into the next point a little bit. However, I do want to say that there are cases where, you've messed up, you've owned it, you've made it right, and that person still, it's there's no way to make them happy sort of on an ongoing basis, right? It keeps becoming an issue and there's things that just don't make sense. It's just clear that that person's a little bit toxic, right? And they're toxic for you, they're toxic for your team, etc. That's when you're going to move into kind of how to handle the actual asshole territory. However, I do do want to make it clear that if you have messed up and the client's complaining, they're not being the asshole, you are, right? Until you fix it, and then, like I said, get the chance to turn that person who's a little bit grumpy into an advocate. I love my alliterations when I say asshole and advocate. Realistically, they're not being the asshole in that situation. We're the asshole. We kind of need to own it and wipe ourselves, if you will, to use the deeply childish metaphors that we're already leaning into really hard here. Now, another scenario where the client is absolutely not the asshole is when they are giving you constructive feedback. Feedback is hard to take. Like I said, these businesses are our babies. We can kind of take things personal. It's difficult. We try really hard. And even so, there are times where we fall short, or we could certainly, even if we're not necessarily falling short, I think we could probably all argue that there are lots of things that we could conceivably do better. And so clients giving you feedback, constructive feedback that care enough, right, to give you the feedback, to give you the opportunity to make the business better, are an absolute godsend and a gift to your business. Because again, if you can take that feedback with some maturity, and I know you can't always move on every piece of feedback that you get, right? Some things are just not realistic for you to implement into your business. But if you can take that feedback with some maturity, implement things, improve things, etc., you have a chance to, number one, turn that one client that gave you the feedback into an advocate. And number two, again, they give you the opportunity to make everything in your business better for everyone else that comes into contact with your business. And I was reading a book at one point, I forget the name of the book, but they did big research on customer retention and things like that. The data set basically said that for every one client that is verbally grumpy, they are actively sort of raising their hand saying, hey, I'm not happy with this, that there are something like 10 or 12 people who are quietly suffering in the background. And so if you get feedback, like someone's not happy with XYZ coach or situation or whatever it may be, I invite you to really take the opportunity to look into that. A lot of times what's happened with me is we see a situation and in your head, like your first reaction is absolutely like write it off. Like, you know what, like just chill out and do business with us. We're doing pretty well. And once you get past that initial like emotional thing, don't tell that to the client, right? Once you get past that initial emotional response, you start digging a little bit deeper. It's like, oh yeah, there are totally some things that we can do better. And what's happened for us is it's really given us an opportunity to up-level our business and take things to kind of where we've taken them now. We continue to take feedback and implement and iterate and so on and so forth. And I think we've been better for it. So again, those clients that are giving you the feedback, that care enough about your business to tell you what's going on, those people are a godsend. Treat them well and try to act on the feedback and make moves towards improving things if you can. And you're likely going to not just keep that customer around, but you're going to keep the other ones that are quietly suffering around and give you the chance to turn those people who might turn into assholes, if you will, into advocates. Super powerful thing for your business. So another thing, let's say that you've got clients that are quietly suffering. They're quietly unhappy, not telling you what's going on. Guess what? Those people, they don't feel comfortable enough to bring you the information, don't feel comfortable enough to bring you the feedback. They don't care enough to bring you the feedback, or they think you can't or won't fix it or listen. You sort of condition them maybe to get emotional anytime you get the feedback, whatever it may be. Those people are likely quietly looking for another solution that already implements the things they've given you the feedback on. And so odds are pretty good. If you don't get that feedback, they're probably looking for another solution and they're going to be gone and give you some bullshit excuse for why they're canceling later on. And so if you can get the feedback and make that a part of your business and be mature about it and act on it when you can, your life's going to be so much better. How do I gauge when someone's actually being an asshole and they're actually worth like kind of considering firing? Now, I don't have some crazy, incredible rubric for this. Basically what it came down to, talking with my fancy, handsome Australian friend, 6'7", God, what a bastard, right? Is basically three things. It's tone, it's respect, and then it's being in the boat rowing with us. So it's taking action on the feedback alongside us as opposed to just like complaining for the sake of complaining. Now, let's break those down. So thing number one, I personally believe that tone is a big deal, right? And when I say tone, I mean conversational tone. How are we going about this? Are you coming to us like it's clearly a constructive conversation? There's mutual respect and we're working together. I think even if you're unhappy about a situation, the communication can still be delivered in a respectful way, right? And guess what? If you're giving feedback to a business, offering feedback in a respectful way is a lot better way to make the business owner on the other side be like, you know what? That's probably fair. We're going to look into it, try to make things better. So the first thing I look for is just overall tone and respect in the conversation. The second thing is if we have somebody that's just complaining for the sake of complaining, meaning, hey, you know, this all happened in the gym, right? Someone's complaining, oh yeah, I just don't know, like this program's just shit, like I'm not losing weight, like I'm not seeing the results I want to see. And then you have this deep coaching conversation, you nurture them, you bring them back into the boat with you, and you have this great coaching conversation with them, you give some action steps, and then 2 weeks later they come back and they're complaining again. So, you know what, Sally, gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, how's it gone with the stuff we talked about last time? Well, I'm not doing that, right? Like, I just don't think, like, this just needs to be, we just need to get this fixed, like, without me having to do anything, right? That person is probably leaning towards being like an actual unsolvable asshole problem that may need to be removed. And why is that? Again, number one, yeah, they weren't in the boat. They didn't execute on the thing that we said they were going to execute, but that alone does not make them an asshole. What makes them an asshole is they came back with like this lack of respect, right? This bad tone, They're not in the boat rowing with you. There's other situations where that person comes back to, gosh, you know what? I'm still not losing weight. I'm still not doing this. And you know what, GR, like I know we talked about this stuff last week and I just wasn't able to implement that. I'm really struggling moving on this thing. Well, that's a collaborative situation. Let's talk about this and move forward. We've had this happen in the agency, actually with Handsome Max, right? That came down from Australia to see us. When he started off, it was not, like, to be very clear, if those of you listening, you're not a client of the agency, what have you, like, dude, cold traffic is tough, right? Growing a gym is not always super easy. And for Max, we struggled out of the gate with him. He's in a very, very difficult market. Some markets are really easy. You can have any idiot run your ads for you and get $5, $10 leads. Everyone shows up, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And other markets are just inherently more difficult. And at this point, we've had enough of a track record and been doing this long enough and had to go against all the big names, literally, like, you name them. We probably had to go against some head-to-head in the past. Like, we've seen clients from freaking everywhere. And so it's one of those situations where we're pretty sure that we're probably the best out there, particularly if you're a small group personal training gym or a personal training gym in that like high ticket in-person gym space. I don't know if there's anyone better than us at doing this. However, even so, even with having arguably the best in the world in this particular market doing things for you, the results can still be slow. They can be difficult to attain, so on and so forth. And with Max, what happened, like we're gonna have an honest collaborative conversation about what's going on. We worked on some things, we workshopped, like we changed some things, he changed some things, we worked together on it. We were both in the boat rolling towards the destination. And lo and behold, a couple months later, he's like, dude, I don't know what happened. We're killing it. And now he's happy enough to freaking fly to San Antonio from Australia to come see us and hang out and eat steak and drink espresso martinis and talk about problem clients. It was a conversational tone of respect. We both did our part moving forward. He cared enough about the business and trusted us enough to have the conversation that, hey, maybe we can make things better. And lo and behold, we did over time. And now he's incredibly happy, right? And he's referring people to us. So that client who, again, he was not being an asshole at all, other than being taller and more handsome than me, but we turned that client from asshole, air quotes in this case, to an advocate, a very real advocate who's now referred like a good handful of people to us. Super cool. So again, just because somebody does not successfully implement a given thing, a given piece of advice that you've given them, that doesn't make them a bad person, a bad client, any of those things. It's more along the lines of the tone of the conversation and whether or not they're actually ever going to be someone that you can save, if you will. If you guys are both working together towards a solution, probably not an asshole. If they're not, you're working with them, et cetera, and they're still, all right, we're never going to be able to make you happy, it probably makes sense to consider the next step, which is firing your assholes. So again, with these people, there's always a tone. The relationship's very one-sided, right? You might work on things and it's just, no, this is, me not getting results, like this is a you problem, not me, or they're asking things that you're never going to be able to do, sort of deeply unreasonable things that you're never going to be able to change in your business in order to make them happy. Or in some cases, like this is totally acceptable too, you just don't like the person, right? You have the right as a business owner to only do business with people you like. Now, sometimes, you need a little bit of maturity because you may only like a really small subset of people and that may not be enough people to feed your family, your team's family, so on and so forth, but you do have the right to not do business with people that you don't like. One of the things I look for is like condescending to our team. So if you're not respectful to our team, like I'm very, very protective of our team. Again, it's a respect thing. So if there's that lack of respect, they're just unlikable, they're toxic, they sort of cause a bad environment, bad morale, not just for you, your team, etc., but also like in the group training setting, man, like if you got one client that's kind of that like cancer client that just brings down the energy in every session they're in, that make it a worse thing, that make it awkward, that make it less fun, etc., for all the other people in the session, you owe it not just to you, not just to your team, but to your clientele and again, your business to probably get rid of that person. So how do we do that in a way that basically creates the least amount of backlash possible, still allows you to be super classy about it, etc., etc. Now, I will say this, a lot of times it feels better, right? In our visceral reaction of someone's being just a complete fuckhead with you is to basically be a dick back, right? To try to out asshole the asshole. This is not a situation where I recommend the angry boat, if you will, where it's let me see who can be the bigger dick here. I don't want that. What I want to do is fire the person in a classy way that gives you a paper trail of, hey, I've been really professional about this. I've done things on the up and up. I have a defensible position. If you want to go leave a negative review about us, I can go document the conversations that we've had. I can document the back and forth communication and let people know, the reasonable people that read that review and read the response are going to see, oh, well, yeah, the gym owner was totally on the up and up here. They totally did the right thing. It sort of seems like this person's a crazy person that's leaving the 1-star review. So I'm going to pay attention to the 80 other 5-star reviews and not pay attention to the 1-star review from this crazy person. I'm probably going to do business with the gym now, right? So you want to be classy about it. Now, there's kind of two categories that I look at with these like asshole client situations. One of them can be a conversation first. So if it's not a clear, yeah, we need to fire you, it's sort of a borderline situation, I like using something I call an extreme reach conversation with them, where essentially I go so far in the direction of, hey, it seems like you're like deeply, incredibly unhappy and that you hate us, what's going on here? And then basically see sort of where they land. So it might go like this, right? You pull Sally aside, there's privates, no other ears, what have you, might be in your office, whatever it is. And it's like, hey, Sally, so can I talk to you for a sec? Yeah. So look, I may be totally off base here and reading the situation wrong. If I'm being honest, I get the feeling that you're just hating what we're doing here and that you'd rather us go play in traffic than keep training with us. Like, am I reading that wrong? And so at that point, two things will happen, right? Either they will communicate their like deep dislike of what you're doing in a way that you're not going to be able to solve, in which you would basically move to the next case, right? The next step in the asshole elimination process. Or they're going to say, no, you know what? It's just been a bad week. I've been this unhappy. You guys are actually great. I really love you. This, that, and the other. And what's going to typically happen is that person will start to be like, yeah, I'm kind of being a dick, aren't I? And they're not going to say that to you, but they're going to typically change their behavior, move things in a better direction. So you got a chance to save some assholes and turn them into whatever is not an asshole. On the other side, that person stays unhappy, or you have someone that you know. Basically, the move here, in my opinion, like what I've done in the past and I've had pretty good experience with, is basically to do something along the lines of, in this case, Sally, right? Hey, Sally, so based on the past few weeks or the work we've done together, I get the feeling that we are not the right person to get you where you want to go, and I'm not operating within my integrity as a coach if I continue to take your money. So next step, insert sort of your favorable cancellation terms. So in Max's case, right, he had a client that he needed to fire, and he's basically like, look, so normally we have a 28-day or 30-day whatever cancellation policy. We've gone ahead and waived that. We've refunded the prorated portion of the membership that you haven't used at this point. We wish you the best in the future. You might do something like that. What we've done in the past is just, again, you want to stop the relationship immediately. This is not a conversation. We're not working on this together at this point. It's like the decision is final, and I don't want there to be any room for misinterpretation here. So it's when we've done it, and we've done it in the agency. Actually, with another Australian client at one point that was just being real disrespectful to the team, and it was basically, hey, I don't feel like we're the right people to help you. Honestly, I don't feel like we're operating within our integrity as coaches and a growth partner with you. If we continue to take your money, I've gone ahead and refunded your last payment. Here's the export of your leads or whatever it is, and I wish you the best. And that's it. End the relationship, close off whatever, kill their membership, leave whatever communication channels you guys are on, what have you, and that's the end. Now, maybe they leave a bad review, maybe they don't. It doesn't necessarily matter. I like to refund them the last payment just so it's done. They don't have any more access. They can't be grumpy about it. If they go and leave a negative review, it's like, well, actually, like, this is what happened. We refunded your last payment. We waived our normal cancellation policy of XYZ. We refunded you. Like, how are you going to be unhappy about that? It was really hard, right, for a reasonable person to be deeply unhappy about that. They may be embarrassed about how they've acted. They may try to apologize later, whatever it is. But in a lot of these cases, man, if you're dealing with someone who's just really, like, you've been so disrespectful to the team that I cannot continue to tolerate that to happen for the sake of my team, for the sake of the business, you're just going to cut that relationship off, be done with it, and move on. Here are some of the maybe not so surprising things that's going to happen once you start to fire your asshole clients. Number one, as soon as you do it, you're going to feel like a weight was just lifted off your shoulders. You're going to have this really nice feeling of superiority, and you're going to have this feeling of, wow, I can breathe again, because you no longer have to deal with that kind of crazy person, right, disrespectful, whatever it is, in your life anymore. Whew, what a sigh of relief. The bigger thing, if you're training people in groups and whatnot, you'll also notice that all of a sudden it feels like the fog has been lifted off of the groups that person used to be in, right? The energy in the groups is going to go up. People are going to be happier, like all these positive things are going to happen in your groups. But the biggest thing and the hidden benefit, the thing that I didn't realize until we had a bigger team and our team was working more directly with clients, is that your team, all of a sudden, if you protect your team, so in this case, this crazy Australian client was being a dick to our team, being rude to our tech folks, all those different things, and I went in, when I saw that, fired the client, refunded them, moved on. All of a sudden, because here's the mindset of your team, particularly when you have good soldiers, right? People that they're on for the mission, they want to make the business successful, they want to make you successful, I guess they want to make themselves successful as well, but they're good soldiers, and in their heads, they're thinking, man, you know what, I gotta gut through it, I gotta grin and bear it, I gotta deal with this client, because the monthly membership, right, is more important than my happiness. I can deal with this and just kind of, hope for the best. A lot of times what will happen is, if you have your team working with a lot of clients like this, that team member is probably pretty freaking deeply unhappy, and they're probably going to be looking for somewhere else to work, realistically, unless you take care of the client, you get rid of them, and you show that your team and the respect for your team and the way that your team is treated is more important to you than one person's membership. And all of a sudden, what happened? So immediately when we did this, I got like 3 direct messages from the different people on our team that were having to deal with this particular problem client that was particularly disrespectful. 3 private thank you messages from those team members. And what's happened, was like the next week, man, the morale's up. There's a little bit more pep and energy in team meetings. And our people at this point, like, they will run through a brick wall for our clients. Even the quote unquote needy clients, even the clients where things aren't necessarily always easy for them, even the clients that need lots of extra support, all those things. But because we protect them from the folks that are disrespectful and inappropriate and just straight up fucking assholes, those team members will run through a brick wall for our clients in this business. And it's one of the things I think that has given us, like, literally industry leading churn in a business, like in the agency business. Dude, people get fired all the time. You guys have heard me say this in other episodes, I'm sure, but like the average agency gets fired in less than 3 months, depending on where you get your data from, like between 2 and 3 months. Dude, our clients don't don't leave, right? Our churn's been like 2% for the past 3 years now. It's unheard of. I talked to other agency owners at these big events because I pay to get educated as well, and like they're on stage bragging about 15% churn, right? That's 8 times our churn. And part of it, I think, is because we protect our team. They will run through a brick wall for our clients because they're happier and they're not having to deal with assholes all the time. Now, the final pro tip that I'll give you is the best way to avoid having assholes in your business is to not let them in the first place. And so the best filtering mechanism, one of the things that I think drives our retention better than anything else, one of the things I think any business can probably learn from we've done a ton of dumb stuff, but I think one of the smart things we're doing here is like our churn, like you can probably learn from regardless of the business that you're in, is to not let assholes in. Now, sometimes people will slip through the cracks, but what we do is we set really hard expectations. And if we get the sense that we actually talk about this on sales meetings, right? We're reviewing sales calls and stuff, whether or not we should sign this client. It's like, okay, what's the headache factor going to be? What's the asshole going to be factor going to be kind of working with this person? And if the headache factor is too high, because we don't necessarily call them assholes up front, I'm just doing it to be funny on a podcast episode, right? If that headache factor is too high, we probably aren't going to sign the client, right? If they seem like too much of an asshole or they're not a values fit, whatever it is, we're not going to take the money, right? Because not all money is good money. So I hope this was somewhat useful. I hope that you can protect your team and that you see the benefits that we've seen in our various businesses, both in the gym side, the fitness side that Max has seen, right, in his business, and frankly, just make your life better by eliminating unnecessary assholes from your life.